On behalf of the Korea Institute for International Economic Policy, I'd like to express our deepest gratitude to everyone of you for joining us on today's event. My name is Wonbin Park, Deputy Director of KIEP Delhi Office, and I honored to be your moderator for today's dialogue. We'd like to discuss the present and future of Korea-India economic partnership. To officially open the event, we'd like to have Dr. Choongjae, Director of KIEP Delhi Office, to deliver the opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Cho with a warm round of applause.
Surely respectable Mr. Charan Singh, Chief Executive of EGROW Foundations, and Mr. Kwang-il, the Korean Association in India, and all of the speakers, and all of the discussants, and all of the participants. 안녕하십니까? Namaskar. Good morning. Yesterday, I had a kind of some vivid dreams related to Korea-India, the relationships. I think perhaps it was inspired by the comprehensive and the mutually beneficial vision our two leaders set out yesterday. In this morning, we open a new, brighter chapter in Korea-India relations. The KIEP Delhi office is proud to host KIEP Dialogue, KIEP Dialogue, Korea-India Economic Partnership Dialogue. Here, KIEP is not only my institute, but also Korea-India Economic Partnership. While KIFFEI, so-called KIEP, the Korea-India Forum for Future Economy and Industry, focus on new industry, new technologies, and new trade. The KIEP dialogue concentrate on the policy cooperations needed to make those ambitions real. For our first KIEP dialogue of 2026, we have chosen the theme Korea-India CEPA upgradations and the strategic investment. CEPA is both a symbol and the practical foundations of our economic cooperations. It came in force in 2010 and is now in its 17th years. Since the late 1990s, the Korean investment in India has helped upgrade Indian industry and expand exports. Building on these gains, and given the fragmentations in the global orders, supply chain realignments, the energy and AI transitions, and need for strategic investment in new technology and industries, it is time to move stronger, better suited cooperation framework between our countries. Today's dialogue is intended as the first step toward that goals. I hope everyone will actively participate in our discussions and make this dialogue productive. Thank you again, all speakers, panelists, and all attendants. Thank you. Thank you again.
Then Mr. Lee Kang-il, President of the Korean Association in India, will come forward to deliver word of congratulatory remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause for President Lee.
Namaste. 안녕하십니까? Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's my great pleasure to be here with you today. I'm Kwang-il Lee, the President of Korea Association in India. First of all, I would like to extend my sincere congratulations on the opening of Korea-India Economic Partnership Dialogue 2026. I would also like to express my deep appreciation to Dr. Choongjae and all the distinguished colleagues at KIEP for organizing this meaningful event. In addition, this visit of President Reji to India has marked an important turning point in elevating Korea-India relations to next level. It has further strengthened our strategic partnership, and I believe today's dialogue carries even greater significance in this context. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now at a critical juncture in a rapidly changing global economic landscape. The restructuring of supply chains, the rapid advancement of artificial intelligence, and the transition toward clean energy, and fundamentally reshaping the way nations cooperate. In this era of transformation, cooperation between Korea and India is no longer optional, it's essential. Our two countries have become indispensable strategic partners to one another. In particular, the discussions surrounding the upgrade of the CEPA go beyond simply expanding trade. They represent an important step toward building a more comprehensive and further oriented framework for economic cooperation. Many Korean companies have already established a strong presence in India, contributing to a solid foundation through bold investment and continuous innovation. Looking ahead, opportunities for collaboration will continue to expand across semiconductors, electric vehicles, shipbuilding industry, energy, and the digital industries. The Korea Association in India will continue to play a responsible role as a strong and reliable bridge, supporting both business and the Korean community to grow together. I sincerely hope today's dialogue will serve as a meaningful platform for sharing insights and generating practical cooperation. Once again, I congratulate you on a successful organization of this event. You are my true friend. I respect and care deeply about you. I love India. Thank you. धन्यवाद.
Thank you, President Kwang-il, for that warm message of congratulations. We will now take a short break for group photos. May I invite our distinguished speakers and honored guests to the front for the group photography? Now it is my honor to introduce Dr. Charan Singh, CEO and founder director of EGROW Foundation, for special speech. His expertise is on financial market and trade, and earlier he was the IVI chair professor of economics at the prestigious Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, and senior economist at the IMF. He's going to talk about Indian reform and Korea-India cooperation from various angles. Please welcome Dr. Charan Singh with a warm round of applause.
Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me over and offering me this opportunity to speak to you. I think it's a very special day. Yesterday's, as you mentioned, what happened in the evening and how was the night after that, exactly those were my thoughts. And my thought was, what took us so long? Why did so much time pass away? If you remember, in 1929, Rabindranath Tagore had that poem, Lamp of the East. In that poem, 1929, 100 years ago, in that poem, he had said, once the lamp is lit, it'll brighten this part of the world. The lamp of the East. And it took us such a long time to reach where we were yesterday evening. The sapling that they were watering together, I wish had happened long time ago. But this was waiting to happen. This had to happen. And let me share this thought with you. We in India, just about 10 months back, have started a journey called Viksit Bharat, Developed India. We know our humble situation. We are at USD $2,880. And our ambition is to grow to $18,000 in just 21 years. 6 times. It's not easy. It's not easy. I was very fortunate that this journey of Viksit Bharat, which we are on today, actually, though conceived by the Prime Minister in April 2021, midst of COVID, the Niti Aayog was assigned this task, and it was the EGROW Foundation which was told to do the blueprint of it. So for 2 years, we worked on the idea of Viksit Bharat. Now just imagine the Planning Commission has been abolished. The IMF and the World Bank have stopped making projections because we're in the midst of COVID. Everybody is full of uncertainty, even on the basics of what will be the population like after 2 years, how many will vanish. And many had predicted that India would suffer the most from COVID. And the roads and the rivers would be full of death. In the midst of that, the Prime Minister was sitting with the light of hope and saying, I want to look at Viksit Bharat. Now, how do you look at Viksit Bharat in the midst of that devastation? And when I started looking at literature, I was surprised to see, wow, there is Korea there. Korea is the greatest example. I'm not saying great example. I'm saying the greatest example of a remarkable story of exploring the advantage of economic backwardness and leading to an economic transformation in modern history. When I visited Seoul in 2009, and I interacted with government officials, I was there for a week as a guest of the Bank of Korea, central bank of that country, and hosted at different places, even had a dinner at the palace where the president hosted us one night. The interaction was very rich. But the sharp contrast between the developmental journeys of India and South Korea was so clear. So clear. Both India and Korea experienced colonial rule. Brits in India, Japanese for them, and then a national division. By 1940s and early 50s, South Korea was perhaps poorer than India in terms of per capita income. Yet today, South Korea stands amongst the world's leading developed economies, rising from a per capita income of USD 87 to 37,000. Unbelievable journey. Unbelievable journey. Contrast India rising from USD $87 to 2,880. This journey I noticed in May 2021. The reasons of this divergence are important and instructive. How did this miracle take place? That's something we need to learn. The actual magic happened in 25 years. 1962 to 1987. And that magic didn't happen easily. It had its turns, it had its booms, it had its troughs. It was a very difficult period. But one of the lessons, the most important, I think, is education. South Korea achieved near universal literacy by 1970. In contrast, in India, even today, our literacy rate is around 74%. Let's be honest, we are friends now, openly declared by the two premiers, our Prime Minister and your President yesterday, and we are on a journey together. Our literacy at 74% is doubted by some of our own industrial leaders. And therefore, the learning from Korea of near 100% literacy in 1970, we have to learn a lot from it. The major shortcomings is both in policy planning and implementation at our end. Korea invested heavily in vocational education and skills development. We have a long way to go. Ensuring the availability of highly trained workforce for their industry. And I'm going to come to that in a minute. Another important area is Korea's extraordinary commitment to research and development. Korea spends 3.5% of its GDP on R&D, with more than 80% of this coming from the industry. Consequently, research is quickly commercialized and translated into products and technologies. We all know the household names and success of the Korean firms. Samsung, household name. Actually, I called it the hand, not the household, the handhold name. I doubt if there's any Indian who has not held a Samsung in their hand. LG and other chaebols that dominate sectors like, and that's going to be our future, semiconductors, shipbuilding, consumer electronics. India, in contrast, spends around 0.7% of its GDP on on R&D, and all of it comes from the government, hardly any from the private sector to name. These two important things, policies, education, and R&D, are institutional. At the personal level, Korea's emphasis on punctuality, discipline, and delivery unimaginable. I'm aware, and I've heard it often, about the experience of the Shipping Corporation of India ordering a container ship from Korean shipbuilders. The shipbuilders were able to give precisely a date of delivery a year in advance and were ready with the ship a week before that. Something in India we need to learn from Korea. Such a sophisticated shipbuilding, and that's where we are entering with the Koreans now. But then, such a sophisticated shipbuilding being executed so precisely. The other passion, personal, is pursuit of excellence. I did my PhD in Sydney, had very good Korean friends with me, and I saw that how passionate they were when they were in the classroom, how passionate they were when they were on their research. They would spend 12 hours easily in our research labs, and how passionate they were. We were young when they were in love. And we would see them on the golf course, how passionate they were for every ball they hit. I was so impressed. Whatever they do, they are chasing perfection and they're doing it with passion. And that was very, very important. I would interact with them in 93 and they would invariably tell me about their concept of Uri Nara, my country, the pride of their country, the priority is their country, something which we in India have yet not perfected. Now, I want to speak and I want to learn and I want to share some thoughts of what happened between 1962 and 1989. This is probably the golden era of Korea. Korea had just recovered from the devastating war. They had got their independence. We got in 47, they got in 45. The country divided in two. The war taking place. This devastation. Economy is in a trap. Low income, low savings, low investment, low growth. You must be familiar with the term that was used by Koreans that time. The concept of extreme hardship in rural areas, popularly called the Barley Hill. Shortage of food. What were the exports like from Korea at that time? Can you imagine? Dried squid, wigs made from human hair. Korean females, ladies had lovely long hair and they would make wigs out of it. Plywood, simple manufactured goods. And the miracle, 25 years later, what were the exports? Automobiles, steel, electronics, ships, machinery. The whole thing changed. How did this happen? The focus was not import substitution. The focus was export orientation. Korea looked outside. The export strategy focused on three pillars. The first, government mobilized an abundant supply of educated labor. Second, it did not choose FDI, but it chose foreign borrowing to finance industrialization. Third, it financed the exporters. The most important and the most learning example is the Korean government held regular monthly export promotion meetings chaired by the president, and anything that was raised in those meetings were instantly handled, addressed to the satisfaction of the industry. Another transformation was Korea moving from labor intensive industries to heavy and chemical industries that reflected in their export orientation. Consequently, we had Hyundai, Samsung, POSCO, SK Group emerged during this period. The heavy industry strategy had its own problems. It was not easy. Still, it persisted, and Korea adopted, picked the winner strategy. Now, I want to conclude. What are the lessons that we have learned from Korea? The pointed lessons that we have learned is reward the good and don't be shy of punishing the bad performance because banks, people's money is involved. The concept of hedgehog technology, develop the technology so large, so beautifully, so extensively, like the hedgehog, nobody can swallow you. You have to survive, and the world has to respect you. The third, reforms are not automatic. Reforms are not granted. They are not legal. They are not painless. They are not linear. Be prepared for it. And finally, wealthy nations have strong armies. Now, the country, fast forward, the time of the agreements between the two countries, which we saw yesterday and way forward, the country is suffering from slowdown in growth, aging, and low birth rate. I think this is the time when we need each other. And that is what is reflected in the strategical pact which we have signed yesterday and which economically is going to benefit both of us. We are looking at fast tracking to double bilateral trade to 50 billion by 2030. And the driving force is none else but semiconductors, AI, and shipbuilding. India has the numbers and the urge to grow, and I think we will make great partners. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Dr. Charan Singh, for your thought-provoking keynote address. We are now ready to begin session one, and this session we try to discuss the current status, challenges, and future direction of Korea-India trade relations and CEPA upgradation. To begin, I am honored to introduce our speaker, Dr. Choongjae, Director of KIEP Delhi Office, to talk about Korea-India CEPA upgradation. Please welcome Dr. Choongjae with a big round of applause.
So, as I said in my opening, when we talk about the Korea-India economic cooperations, especially the trade and investment, we cannot avoid the issue of the Korea-India CEPA upgradations. But I already mentioned CEPA upgradations alone will not complete our economic visions. I will speak from the two perspectives. First, we should complete the CEPA upgrade negotiations as soon as possible. Second, we should move forward new broader cooperation framework that covers new technologies and strategic industries. In other words, let us aim for CEPA 2.0 plus special strategic partnership 2.0 to elevate our relationship faster, deeper, and broader. So as you can see, the CEPA is the only institutional system that operates in real time between our two countries. There are regional or multilateral or mini-lateral levels initiative tied to both countries. For example, the IPEP Pillar 2, 3, 4, and the G20 Energy Transition Working Groups. However, these initiatives not only require further progress through the ongoing dialogue, but have also seen virtually no substantive advancement in practice due to the factors such as the unilateral tariff policies of the second Trump administrations. For example, the IPEP Pillar 2, the supply chain agreement, involving the 14 countries, nations, including Korea and India also, was the first to be implemented starting in July 2024. And following a single simulation exercise, a kind of some mock exercise conducted last year, but it has proven completely ineffective in the context of ongoing war in West Asia at this moment. Ultimately, the Korea CEPA remains the only institutional system for cooperations that functions continuously and in real time between two countries. Okay. CEPA entered into force in January 1st, 2010. It was 5 years earlier than Korea, China, and Korea-Vietnam FTAs. It was India's the first FTA with OECD country. Now over 16 years old, CEPA still has to grow more, but the growth has stagnated. Look at some figures. In the 15 years before CEPA took in force, Korea-India trade grew at a compound CAGR, compound annual growth rate, was more than 13%. But in the 15 years since CEPA entry, the CAGR was only 2.7%. Trade jumped in 2011, the first year after CEPA, surpassing $20 billion, then stagnated. Briefly returned to 20 billion in 2018 and reached all-time high 27 billion in 2022. However, last year, 2025, bilateral trade was 25 billion about. Ultimately, the trade target of the $40 billion by 2015 agreed at the 2012 bilateral summit was obviously impossible, and the target $50 billion by 2030 set when the both countries resume CEPA upgrade negotiations in 2022, it is also difficult to achieve with current growth rate. There are many reasons for the underperformance, but two key problems are there, I think. One is the lowest concession rate. Second is strictest rule of origins. They have limited CEPA utilizations and reduced trade creation effect. The India's tariff concession under CEPA covered only about 85% of tariff line for Korea. It's lower than the Korea's FTA with Turkey, Chile, and Vietnam by more than 5% point. Rule of origin requires changes at the six-digit code, plus a minimum regional value contents of 35%. Other FTAs accept either changes at the four-digit HS code or not and or a 40% regional value contents. As a result, CEPA has been among the lowest utilized FTA, despite its long durations. In 2022, the highest record of trade volume, CEPA utilization by Korean export was about 67%, the lowest compared to the other FTAs. And the import utilizations was only about 45%. By the quarter of 2025, utilizations improved about 81% overall, but import utilization remains relatively low. Next, please. Okay. The problem goes beyond the limited trade creation effect. The most significant issue is that the trust between our two nations. In particular, the authority and the credibility of our summit meetings. As you can see here, on numerous occasions since 2014 summit, the early conclusion of negotiations to upgrade CEPA has been formally announced. To date, total of the 11 round of the negotiations have taken place. In the interim, 12 years have passed. For comparison, when Korea-India first negotiated the original, the CEPA, the entire negotiations lasted just 2.5 years. But for CEPA accreditation negotiations, we took more than 12 years. It's not make sense, I think. Fortunately, yesterday, the leaders of both nations once again declared the resumption of the CEPA upgrade negotiations and pleased to bring them to a swift conclusions. I sincerely hope that taking this summit as a pivotal opportunity, the authority and credibility of our bilateral summit meetings will be restored through the successful upgrade of the CEPA. Next. Meanwhile, India has become more active in pursuing the FTAs since 2021. India, UAE, India, Australia FTA have already entered into force. UK will follow in May, and the EU in November this year. Negotiations are underway with Israel, GCC countries, and India plans to talk with Canada and the others. Notably, the concession rate allowed by India to EU is 93%. It's much higher than 85% that India offered Korea under CEPA. India calls this is a model of the all trade deals. Now, India's FTA strategy is shifting toward the building industrial ecosystem through openness rather than protecting market, I think. Given these changes and the success of the yesterday's summit, CEPA upgrade must be completely quickly, but CEPA alone is not enough. For areas like EV, we already mentioned batteries, critical minerals, semiconductor, green hydrogen, 6C, cybersecurity, AI, SMR, space, defense. The corporations in this area cannot rely on tariff costs or easing non-tariff barriers. we need more stronger mechanism for economic security, technology, and strategic investment corporations. Our new vision should go beyond increasing trade and investment. It should establish a global supply chain cooperation partnership and a future strategic investment partnership. I believe the upgraded CEPA could explicitly include cooperation in shipbuilding, semiconductors, green hydrogen, batteries, critical minerals, and SMRs, etc. More importantly, we need to share future visions covering these areas. In this context, I strongly assert that of Korea-India version of ICT or TRUS trust. India and US created ICET, Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technology, and later expanded it into trust, transforming the relationship utilizing strategic technologies, which covers energy, critical mineral, biotech, and the border supply chain corporations. ICT, I think ICT focus on the emerging technology. Trust, TRUST elevate that models to a full economic security and the supply chain partnership. Korea and India should build similar visions, a Korea-India version of trust, the covering strategic sectors like I already mentioned, shipbuilding, semiconductors, green hydrogen, batteries, critical mineral, SMRs, AI, space, etc. If such an initiative is agreed at the highest level and managed via annual summit review, our relationship will deepen and widen much faster, I think. In short, we must urgently conclude CEPA accreditations to restore the summit level credibilities and trust in the economic cooperations. At the same time, we should launch a Korea-India version trust framework to strengthen cooperations in a new technology, new industries, and the future strategic area. This will prepare our two countries for the next 50 years and the 100th anniversary of the diplomatic ties. To achieve this, we need a regular bilateral summit meetings, ministerial level dialogue, and institutionalized public-private cooperations each other. Thank you.
Thank you
Panel
for
discussion sessions.
Thank you for your excellent and comprehensive presentation. Next week we will hear from Associate Professor Dr. Reji Joseph of ISID, who will present on the opportunity and challenges in CEPA accreditation from Indian perspective. Please welcome Dr. Reji Joseph with a big round of applause.
First of all, I would like to congratulate KIEP for starting KIEP dialogue, Korea-India Economic Partnership. And thank you very much, KIEP and Dr. Cho, for inviting me for this dialogue. So what I will do is to discuss on the opportunities and challenges in CEPA upgradation, primarily from an Indian point of view. So what I will do is that I will briefly cover the current status of India-Korea economic engagements, then key issues faced by India and Korea, then opportunities and challenges in CEPA upgradation, and a brief discussion on potential new areas for deepened partnership. So let me start with highlighting some success stories from the India-Korea economic partnership. So we know some of the leading Korean companies have established themselves very well in India: Samsung, LG, Hyundai, Kia. They not only made India a manufacturing base, but they are engaging in substantial exports. For example, Samsung last year, exports accounted for more than 40% of revenue. And they have established major R&D centers in India. And in terms of market capitalization, they are performing very well. For example, LG at the time of public listing last year, its market valuation was much more than that of its parent firm. And in profitability also, they are performing well. Yeah. And it has been pointed out that much of the Korean investments coming to India was in the manufacturing sector, a sector that India really wants to transform. So that way, we see that India-Korea economic partnership has a lot of potential, and it is a win-win situation for both the countries. However, there are some major concerns facing both the countries, which we need to address to take this partnership forward. A major concern for India is the increasing trade deficit with Korea. So when the CEPA was signed, it was expected that India's exports to Korea will increase, but that has not happened. Actually, India's share in exports to Korea has declined from 2009 to 2023. And as a result, the trade deficit is steadily rising. So this is a major concern. And we have been talking about a second wave of Korean investments into India. The first wave was in the 90s when Samsung, LG, Hyundai, they all established in India. And Korea has become a major source of global FDI. Its share has increased from 0.5% in 2000. It went up to 9% in 2020, then it declined. And last year, it was the 8th largest source of FDI. But in terms of Korean FDI to India, it's very small. Out of the total FDI India is receiving, Korea's share is less than 1%. So as I said, we were expecting a second wave of Korean investments. This is primarily because India is pushing to transform the industrial sector. And we have Make in India initiatives, then a production-linked incentive scheme, and various reforms to improve the ease of doing business. Then it was expected that Korean firms would find India an attractive destination, but that has not happened. And if we look at the trends in Korean outward FDI, what we find is that there is a restructuring happening away from China. So this has started after 2018 with the US-Korea trade tensions. Then there were COVID-induced supply chain disturbances, then geopolitical and all the tensions in the international relations. All this induced a diversification in the Korean outward FDI strategy. And so I made a comparison of 2 years before 2018 and last 2 years. What we find is that the manufacturing outward FDI has doubled, and much of it is going to US. If we take a global picture, Korean manufacturing investments has increased to US, Mexico, Canada, North America, and ASEAN, and Brazil also. But Korean manufacturing FDI to India, it has decelerated. So that shows that India is not an attractive destination for Korean enterprises. Now, some of the key issues. So one key issue for India is that in many sectors where India is having a competitive advantage globally, and Korea is an importer of the same product, Indian exporters face market access issues. So we, Ramma and myself, we did a study on that. We identified products in which India is having global competitive advantage. Then we compared the share of that product in global exports and to Korea. And we identified only those products in which Korea is having a minimum import of 100 million US dollar. And we identified 19 sectors where the India's export share to Korea is lower than world share. Just to give you one example, pharmaceuticals. So India is a major player in generic medicines. We export majorly. And out of the total pharma trade, Indian generics account for 2.5%, but to Korea, it's very less. It's about 0.6%. When the CEPA was signed, the expectations from the Indian side, it is finding a space in the report of the joint study group. So it was expected that there will be investment-induced trade, like what has happened in the case of Hyundai Samsung. So the Korean firms would establish manufacturing facilities in India and they would export. And food processing was identified as such a possible sector, but nothing has happened. It was also expected that relocation of labor-intensive industries from Korea, especially in leather and textiles, would happen. That also did not happen. And it was also provided that there will be enhanced cooperation in pharmaceuticals and pharmaceutical R&D and generics. That also did not happen. So we have to look into where it went wrong, so that it will help in preparing for the taking future steps. And there are a number of non-tariff barriers Indian exporters are facing. Just one example, in the case of vegetables and fruits, this SPS certification. So for that, the Korean agency need to visit India, so there are issues with that. Similarly, the import of pharmaceuticals, the process is very complicated. So due to that, Indian pharmaceutical exporters find it difficult to export to Korea. And Korea is also very reluctant to take commitments on services, especially in healthcare and IT. So this is a strong area of India. So that is also a concern for India. But from Korean side, they also have their concerns. One is, as Dr. Cho was saying, there should be more deeper concessions. So they also have concerns that India, for example, India-Japan CEPA, which was signed 1 year after India-Korea CEPA, it has much deeper concessions. So they have a feeling that the India-Korea CEPA is very superficial. It could be much more substantial. They also want to export some of their agricultural products to India, so they face market access issues. And the major issue for Koreans is the rules of origin. So they find the rules of origin requirements of India as very stringent. Now, the Trump tariffs is also reported to be affecting India-Korea economic engagements. So I was mentioning about the second wave. Some people say the second wave is about to start. So they give this example. If you look at the recent trends in FDI, to Korean FDI to India, the services has surpassed that of manufacturing, especially in banking finance. So some people say Korean investments come as a package of Korean ecosystem of suppliers, banking, finance. So this surge in services is an indication that the second wave is about to happen. But the potential investors are concerned about Trump tariffs on India. So that is why they are just waiting. So this is another concern. Now, when we discuss about CEPA upgrade, so I think this is the right time to initiate discussions on CEPA upgrade. We know there is a global consensus on supply chain resilience, and countries are moving to diversify supply chains. And India is pushing as an alternate location. So that way, this is a good time. And the recent FTA negotiations of India, and India has shown the willingness to undertake deeper commitments, even in those sectors, for example, agriculture,
where India was very sensitive earlier. So considering all these dimensions, I think the discussion can be much more productive now on CEPA upgradation. But there are some challenges also. One is the non-tariff barriers faced by Indian exporters. So that will have to be addressed. Second, there will be likely a demand from India to open up services markets of Korea, especially healthcare and IT. So that may be challenging for Korea. Yeah, I will wind up. Then India is also likely to demand investment commitments in return for market access. This is what we have seen in recent FTAs. And rules of origin, I think that is going to be the major challenge. In 2020, a new customs administration of rules of origin under trade agreements rules was notified. These rules aims to mitigate the FTA misuse through third country routing. So last year there was a notification which changes the requirement. Earlier, the partnering country was supposed to issue a certificate saying that rules of origin requirement is met with, but now that is changed completely. The importer will have to produce documents, verified documents to proof that the value addition has been met with. So this is going to be very challenge for Korean firms, which have a centralized approach in terms of procurement, pricing, and all. Then potential areas for deepened cooperation. One is shipbuilding. So due to paucity of time, I will not discuss much about that. There is already an MOU signed between one Korean enterprise and a Cochin shipyard. Then green hydrogen. So in Korea, the hydrogen economy is dominant as of now in consumption. They have strong capabilities in storage and transport. And it is reported that India can be a cost-effective producer of green hydrogen. So I think there is a lot of complementarities where if the two countries come together. And defense, India has liberalized FDI restrictions on defense, and this is a good area for cooperation. And nuclear energy. So the Shanti Act of 2025, it has reduced the liabilities on foreign supplier and operator, and it is also encouraging small modular reactors. So this is an area of strength of Korea, and there could be possible cooperation in nuclear energy. So the other day when both the leaders met, so this was an area identified, so clean energy. So with this, I will stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reji Joseph, for your inspiring speech. Next, we will engage in panel discussion, and it includes presenters of session 1. And it is my great pleasure to introduce our next moderator, Senior Visiting Professor Dr. Nisha Taneja of EGROW. Furthermore, I'm honored to introduce our panelist, Professor Dr. Ram Singh of Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, and Dr. Kyunghoon of Head of Team India and South Asia, KIEP, and please welcome them with a big round of applause.
Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here today, and we heard two very stimulating presentations just earlier on by Dr. Cho and Dr. Reji Joseph. And now I would request Dr. Ram Singh to give his comments on the two presentations. Over to you.
Thank you very much. It's indeed pleasure to go through the two presentations which are delivered respectively, bringing perspective from a Korean side and also from Indian side. First of all, my heartfelt appreciations to both the speakers Professor Cho and also to Professor Reji for bringing insights, first-hand practical insights, which are duly collaborated with the data. But at the same time, I would like to frame some questions. When we talk about, sir, especially to Professor Reji, when we talk about there is a decline of FDA from Korea to India, there is another shift which in fact we need to capture in that major decline is not in the, it is in the manufacturing sector. It has almost dried up. But at the same times, there has been a significant increase in Korean investment in India's service sector, which is well reflected in various application, digital app, fintech app, gaming platform, a good number of gaming platform which has come up. So I would like to know that beyond manufacturing, if some collaboration is coming up in the service sector, if you can throw light on that, that we would like to know from you. At the same time, I would like to request Professor Cho, because we talk about rules of origin, sir. Let me give some data. One of the largest producers of steel sector in the world is China, 1,050 million metric ton, MMT. India is second largest producer, but 10 times lower than that. It is around 155, and Korea is third. Korea is exporting so much of steel to all over the world. You do not have a significant production. Our concerns on what we say circumventions of duties or concerns of rules of origins in many cases are justified. Given those circumstances, Government of India has come up with the Carrot rules in 2020. So we have seen in many sectors, and it is well established. In fact, if you're interested, I can share some of the cases, but I will not name the firms, where the steel is coming from China, from the upstream industry. It is processed, just maybe a cosmetic value addition. In 2-3 sectors, I can name it here only. And then it is being exported to India. So I would like to further, request yourselves if you can illustrate when we talk about 6-digit plus regional value chain concerns on that, if you can a little bit throw more light from India's concern point of view. So these are the two questions. Maybe I will come further another round, if time permits.
Thank you. Yeah, please.
Yeah. See, when we talk about Korean FDI to India, it's not very substantial. So as I said, out of total FDI India is receiving, the total FDI from Korea is less than 1%. Out of the total FDI India is receiving, there is a structural change that we see during the last 5 years. The services has overtaken manufacturing. So I think 23-24, the investment in services was about 200 million. Much of this is in the banking. So I haven't looked at who are the investors and all. So I believe that some of the Korean banks have established their presence in India. There may be some investments in what you were saying, in gaming and all, but I haven't checked.
It's a good thing that FDI in services has increased, but I think the issue is, why isn't manufacturing increasing? You know, I think that's where the larger question lies, and we're not being able to break through that barrier.
Thank you, Chair. First, I would like to add the related to the first questions from the FTI, why the Korean FTI is less lower than our expectations. So Joseph said he expect a kind of second movement of the Korean FTI like the 1990s. One thing is, yes, definitely the observation is right. But one thing is different is Dr. Charan Singh said also a lady told us, when we Korea in the modernize of our industry, we are focused on the FDI rather than the FDI. We are focused on the foreign borrowings like this. In Korea, even the Hyundai, Samsung, LG, they are using the internal reserve, like for example, the profit rather than the equity from the Korea. That's why in the figures, including Korean Exim Bank figures and the Ministry of the Commerce of Industry data, data is just only checking from the money, dollar terms from Korea to India. But I already mentioned Samsung, LG, Hyundai, they are expanding their facilities with their own monies from India. That is too much different things. So at this moment, the LG and the Hyundai is opened the share to the Indian market. So I think like these situations, without the FTA from the other companies, the FDI from the Samsung, LG, Hyundai is not too much increase rather than our expectation. That is one reason, different thing. And just only rule of origin, definitely the Indians' rule of origin is very, very strong. Yeah, it's right. Even the China is just only the change of the HS code 4-digit and or just only 40% of the regional value content rate. But India is 35% regional value contents and plus the HS code 6-digit changes. Yeah, it's too much stronger. So it's good for the protecting the Indian market, but it is definitely not good for making ecosystem in India. For example, at this moment, as far as I know, some Japan's automobile companies are making car in India and they try to export to Japan. We Korea side have a similar plan, but like these situations, to making the car in India to export is limited because of some the tariff or non-tariff barriers. So that's why we need some more loosens the rule of origin systems and some concession rate in the commodity sector. Thank you.
Can I just add on this question? I want to share some facts and figures to review the perspective that Korea is not really focusing on India's manufacturing sector when it comes to manufacturing. So Samsung Electronics production capacity is 120 million units. LG Electronics produces 2 million units of most of the home appliances, and when it opens the third factory in Andhra Pradesh after investing $600 million, it will jump up to 3 million units each. HD Hyundai is about to make a huge investment, and also POSCO and JSW are setting up a joint venture to make an integrated steel factory with a capacity of 6 MPTA, right? I can go on and go on. HC Construction Equipment, they produce 6,000 equipments per year, and Hyundai Motors, its production capacity is nearly 1 million. Kia Motors, 431,000. So Korean companies really believe in this phrase, make in India, for India, and for the world. And compared to some other companies like Apple, Samsung Electronics' dependence on a reliance on exports might be slightly smaller because their product segment focuses on mid to high consumers, high income consumers. But over time, I think this will change quickly. And regarding the figures on FDI, the recent figure is, yes, driven by services because companies like Mira Asset acquisited Charan, the Indian company. But at the same time, manufacturing small and medium enterprises are slowly expanding, gradually expanding their investment, and conglomerates, manufacturing conglomerates of Korea is expanding their investment in India using local financial resources. Maybe that is not captured in FDI.
Yeah. Actually, there are two questions in front of us which are not answered. One, what explains the rise in services FDI? Second, why the manufacturing FDI is not increasing? Let me try to explain this. See, one objective of foreign investors is market seeking. If that is the objective, then they would look at the market prospects in India. The services, it's growing. So then it's quite natural that FDI would come more in services. And I was also looking at the trends in outward FDI from Korea. So there is a structural shift there also. So we believe that Korea is primarily a manufacturing oriented country, and outward FDI would also be predominantly by the manufacturing sector. That was so maybe 8-9 years back. Now that is also changing. So lately, I think the share of manufacturing sector in Korean outward FDI is around 30-32%. The rest is by services and mining. So there is a transition in Korea, and if the objective is market seeking, then of course they would tend to invest in services. Then in manufacturing, we know the government has been trying to transform it, increase the share of manufacturing to 25% of GDP. So we have all these initiatives. In spite of that, it is still stagnant at 16-17%. So that could also be one factor.
Just to stretch the FDI issue a little bit more, when you showed the numbers, Korean investment in the US is really large. And so why is it that India is way, way low? So that still remains a big question. And to top it all, in the US trade deal, South Korea has pledged $350 billion more of investment in the US. So it's like, aren't you putting all your eggs in one basket? I mean, they were already in one basket, and now you're just putting more into it. So it's just to draw the contrast of how much more scope there is for Korean investment in India, and that maybe we are not doing something right. What is it that maybe India can do to draw in foreign investment, or make it more attractive for Korean investors to come in India?
And let me add a little bit more. Government of India has offered PLI incentives, also offered a very special package for shipbuilding in India, more than 50,000 crore rupee. Koreans are manufacturing, if I'm not mistaken, more than 33% of the world ships. They have great expertise in that area. We are not able to understand when we talk about IPEF collaborations, especially in supply chain, value chain. Why we are not able to link our PLI incentives and our core competencies in value chain when both the countries had so many complementarities to each other to trade with, sir?
So, Dr. Taneja, your appointment is very important issues. Yeah. At this moment, we Koreans, through the Dr. Joseph's presentations, a kind of the Koreans foreign investor destinations. China is number one, and Vietnam also. And at this moment, the America is rising. So you can understand very well why we Koreans, the big companies like Samsung, LG, Hyundai, Hana, also have much interested in America, and also they already start investment. So the important thing is the investors are for the private company, so they have to select. They can select their own selves. So they select which country is good for them. So now at this moment, shipbuilding is very, very strategically important between Korea and India, and India's environment, the investment environment in the shipbuilding sector is improved. Everything is better. But just only compared to India have to compare to America. If America side, they give more incentive or they give more good business environment to Korean company, they select the America. So it's very, very important issues we cannot control. So that's why, including us, the government and the public sector, we have the more expert to make a good situation, good environment in India to invest by Korea company to India. It's important things. It's natural things. Yeah.
Can I just add, I consult many Korean firms on their investment strategies in India, and they really believe that India is the destination that they must enter as soon as possible and expand their investment. Of course, small and medium enterprises are slightly slower in entering India because they have limited capacity in dealing with difficult business environment. But at the same time, I think it's a little bit unfair to compare Korea's investment into the US and Korea's investment into India one-to-one, because US's GDP is $32 trillion. India's GDP is $4 trillion, so 8 times larger in terms of GDP. In terms of innovation capacity, I really believe that India is catching up very fast in artificial intelligence, space, biotechnology, and so on, but we cannot compare India's competitiveness now with the US's competitiveness in strategic industries. And also, I can go on and compare India and US's current status, but proportionally, I think Korean companies are actually paying significant attention to the Indian economy, and I believe there's a great potential for investment cooperation.
We see there is a massive increase in Korean investments, manufacturing investments to US. That is primarily in semiconductor and also in electric vehicle battery manufacturing. This investment is induced by the Chips and Sciences Act and Inflation Reduction Act. And there is a requirement that those who are benefiting from Chinese US incentives as part of these legislations, they should not be investing in adversary countries, China. So that may be the reason we see a deceleration in Korean investments to China. If Korea has invested massively in US in semiconductor, I do not know whether they will invest again massively in India, although both leaders have identified semiconductor as an area of cooperation. Yes, there is one Korean firm already in India in semiconductor, but whether more firms would come in, that we will have to wait and see. But as regarding possible areas of cooperation, I feel shipbuilding is one. Again, there is one issue. This cooperation was gaining some momentum, but then Trump came in between. He wanted to develop a shipbuilding industry there, and he wants Koreans to invest in US. So this is placing Koreans in a difficult situation because they cannot invest both in India and US. So otherwise, shipbuilding is a possible area. And green hydrogen, that is an area of potential collaboration.
I'll come to you right away. I think that was a lot of discussion on investment. So let's come back to CEPA because that is what is going to be engaging all of us. So I'll give each one of you a minute or so to reflect on CEPA and how can we take that forward? What are the 2 or 3 things that you think need to be done, particularly in the changed context of India's signing so many FTAs in the last couple of years? Dr. KIEP.
So I completely agree with 2 presenters' policy implications that they provided at the end of their presentations. So from Dr. Cho, Korea could consider initiating negotiations for a new comprehensive economic agreement that goes beyond a CEPA upgrade and covers a broad range of areas, similar to what Australia is pursuing with India, including labor mobility, supply chains, green development, digital trade, and development partnership. This, in my view, should be our ultimate goal. And to move in this direction, substantial preparation will be required. As a first step, the Korean government may need to shift its focus away from a narrow CEPA upgrade centered on market liberalization and instead prioritize cooperation with India in strategic industries, which I'll discuss in the next section. And this is an approach that was clearly reflected in the recent summit outcomes. And it would also be worth exploring ways to increase Korea's imports from India. In this regard, initiatives such as the green hydrogen offtake agreement between Samsung and Reliance, valued at approximately $3 billion over 15 years, are very encouraging developments. And at the same time, both governments could play a more active role in supporting Korean firms deepening their value chains in India, particularly facilitating the entry of Korean small and medium enterprises into India.
I will focus 3 points here, so which I already covered in my presentation. One is addressing non-tariff barriers from India's side. As I said, Indian exporters face serious non-tariff barriers that needs to be addressed. At the same time, India will be willing to offer more market access, tariff liberalization, because the approach of India has changed. So this is one. Second thing will be on services. So there is going to be, I was looking at the recent trade data. So in export services is almost close to manufacturing. So services has become a major export category. So there will be a demand from India to open up services market of Korea. So as my colleague was saying, so labor mobility all will become important. And most important thing, rules of origin. So India has become very sensitive to rules of origin because of this third country routing issue. So I think this will have to be deliberated very carefully, seriously, to address the issues.
Sir, I would like to further know from you, given that India had signed a FTA with Europe, where the tariff liberalization is as high as more than 93%. In case of Korea, it is just 85%. Given the relaxations which India has offered, deep relaxations in automobile, wines, in many other sectors, including the movement of people, trade in services, AI protocols, the trade in quantum computing. These are some of the new areas where our economic engagement with new trade partners such as UK and also with the European Unions are much deeper. What is your take that, what are the expectations of Korea vis-a-vis deepening this relationship to the same level as we have partnering? Number one. Number two, sir, there are certain areas which we need to reflect upon. We together need to reflect upon. I know that there is investment by Korean defense manufacturer K9. K9 Vajra tank is a very popular tank in India. It is used by Navy. There are certain sectors in India which acts as a bridge in the minds of people. If we do not create trust in the minds of people, and how the trust can be created, there are certain sectors which we identify, which can be, in my assessment, defense, because we have same concerns. We both are a part of Indo-Pacific region. Our challenges are almost same. Why cannot we partner in the defense sector? You see, Russia has not given us much in terms of investment or other things, but they have given a sense of safety by investing in India's defense sector. Given the great capability that Korean firms carry in defense sectors, why do not we collaborate? Space, quantum computing, semiconductors, hydrocarbons. And one thing which is very close to my heart is, especially I've been in Korea. I have enjoyed your vegetables and fruits. Your apples are very, very popular. I do not know India imports a lot of apple. Why we are not able to import from Korea? And one sector is a pharmaceutical. These are the areas where we have a lot of potentials. What we say, we can create capacities based on our innate capabilities, bring competence of South Korean companies to Indian ecosystem, and create a trust factor. When trust comes, trade automatically expands. So given the recent negotiations of CEPA concerns of deep tariff cuts to other partners, what will be your take to take this journey forward, sir? To both of you.
Yeah, you suggest so many sectors, but I hopefully when we make the CEPA a great chapter, so many the part is will be included, including semiconductor, blah blah, defense sector also. I would like to one things as a not Korean perspective, the Indian perspective. I like Indian mango, and I like the kingfisher. So please compare the tariffs from the abroad, including the India, Philippines, Thailand, even Chile. Definitely, the tariffs from the India to Korea is higher than other countries, such as like Thailand, the Philippines, even Chile, because of in our the CEPA system, mango is a kind of my thinking, I don't know, a kind of sensitive item. The maximum reduction tariffs is 50%. For example, 12% is tariffs, maximum 6% is definitely the maximum reductions. But others mangoes from Vietnam, as far as I know, the Vietnam's mangoes when we Korea import from 0%, kingfish also same. So that's why we also want to more the market access, and also India have too much rooms to ask a market access. And the industrial, the upgradation is take some times. But the important thing is not trade deficit issues to making good, friendly ecosystem in many sectors in manufacturing sector, both country is more important things.
In fact, we could go on and on about the kind of products that for which there is demand in Korea, and India is a large producer. One of the largest items is meat, because Korea is one of the largest importers of beef, and India is one of the largest exporters, and yet our exports to South Korea are zero. So clearly, we need to address something like this, or even sesame seeds. We are one of the largest producers of sesame seeds. And South Korea, there's no dish that's made without sesame seeds. So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that we could identify, but I think it goes beyond tariffs, and that's what we need to work on. I think with that, we would open the floor to the audience. And may I first request Dr. Charan Singh to give your comments, since you've heard all of us. Your expert comments would be very useful.
I must say this has been a very, very rich discussion that we have just had. Two expert presentations in detail, and then two discussants. Very rich discussion. Uh, I have had my own time, so I don't want to rob others from their time. I just want to make three quick bullet points. The first, I think as the geopolitics happened in the last 75 odd years, we were not able to come close to South Korea because South Korea was considered to be the other bloc. Now, as things are unfolding, probably as America, Trump has done to India, Nixon did to South Korea, the realization has come and we are coming closer. One bullet point. The second, mango is one example. But when I went to Seoul, I was surprised. This country is so clean and beautiful. And before that, I had studied at Sydney and interacted with the Koreans, and I used to be impressed with their lifestyle, their passion. When I saw it, witnessed it in their own country, I was very impressed. You will be surprised. In India, when the Prime Minister took office, the first speech that he made from the ramparts of the Red Fort, he spoke about something which some of us in academic circles would be shy of. I think waste management is very, very important. It has implications on the whole economy. And Korea strictly follows it, pay as you throw. There are things which can bring us closer. The third and the final point which I want to make is the relationship that we can develop between people to people, which I for the first time noticed in the discussions yesterday, is extremely important. We are realizing the limits of modern science. Korea is 5,000 old civilization. We are a 5,000 old civilization. We have Ayurveda, which we have developed. They have Sasam, the medical system. People to people interaction will bring us closer, and then all things will fall in place. the manufacturing, the industry, the services, the hotels, everything will fall in place if we are able to come together. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you're absolutely right. People to people contact, and maybe tourism is also a channel that we could all work on. It's really undertapped, and I think that brings us the pleasure of seeing each other's countries and connecting with the two peoples. Yes, yes, please.
This is the good word, people to people. You mentioned about the tourism. The why not the visa on arrival for the Indian? That is very important. I request all the dignitaries to consider that. Now, my second point is the Custom Circular 14 2025, the Indian Custom Circular, Ministry of Finance Circular is on the there. Your screen, two issues are there: the rule of origin and the HS code. HS code in your Korea is 10 digit, and India we are following 8 digit. How we can match our invoice with the HS code and with ours? So we can't have the preferential custom duty benefit. There will be always will be a dispute on that issue. And the you mentioned about the regional value content (RVC). That is very important to understand, because there is a we how can we produce that this has the 35% or 40% content in Korea or in India, and most important in the corpus this is character, we have to prove the manufacturing process, cost breakdown, raw material sourcing, the traceability, you can say, to prove that product is produced in Korea or in India. So this CEPA has to be. My next point is the why the main currency in US dollar, why not in INR under the Vostro account? That is, I need to say. One more point, if you allow me to, if you allow me to say this thing, just 1 minute, please. Yeah, this is the for the manufacturing units in the Korea. From 1st January 2026, rule has been changed. Now, under the Korea, they have increased the corporate income tax, and they have also increased the withholding. A new tax is introduced, the withholding tax procedure. This has also been introduced, and this besides the custom income tax tariff, the local tax of 10% is also been added in that. The last point, the stricter rule of transfer pricing, TP, means the royalty and the management fees to foreign entities that need to be considered in this CEPA. Thank you once again.
That's a lot of questions. I'm.
Let me answer. I can answer
We
that.
don't.
No
do we
problem.
have time? We don't have
Acha,
time.
acha, no problem.
We don't have
But
time.
you can meet me. I will try to answer each of your question, except last two questions which you talk about with regard to transfer pricing and with the holding tax. I need to see the documentary evidence. But your initial four questions, they are on my tips. Please just join me for a cup of tea. We can.
Thank you. Thank you, all the panelists and presenters. This was a very nice session. And thank you to the audience. With that,
I can add on that. So as we try to implement a more broad, comprehensive CEPA or free trade agreement, we'll definitely look into how we can improve mobility of our workers and tourists between the two countries, and that's what other major economies are doing with India.
thank you. Thank you, everyone.
We'd like to invite the second presenter, Dr. Yoon, Research Fellow of India and South Asia team from KIEP. She's going to present of the digital and AI partnership in terms of Korea-India cooperation. Please welcome her with a big round of applause.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yoon and I'm from KIEP. And today I'll talk about the Korea-India digital and AI partnership. Before I begin, let me highlight a very recent development. So just yesterday, Korea and India announced new areas of cooperation during the presidential visit. Most notably, the two countries agreed to establish an India-Korea digital bridge framework, which signals a clear shift toward deeper digital and AI cooperation. So this presentation is actually very timely. What I would like to do today is to step back and explain why this partnership matters structurally, what each country brings to the table, and how this new momentum can be translated into concrete cooperation. The key question is simple. Why these two countries and why now? So I first explained the strategic fit, then India's digital and AI trajectory, followed by Korea's strength, and finally what this means for future cooperation. So let me start with a simple observation here. India and Korea are both leading digital economies in Asia, but they have developed very different strengths. India's advantage lies in scale and openness. It has population of over 1.4 billion, and its digital systems are designed to operate at massive scale. At the same time, it has one of the largest pool of AI and software talent globally, and rapidly expanding startup ecosystem. Korea, in contrast, represents depth and precision. It has world-class semiconductor capabilities, a highly advanced digital government system, and strong R&D infrastructure. So if we look at this structurally, the two countries are not competing, they are highly complementary. However, despite this strong fit, the partnership is still relatively underdeveloped. To understand India's trajectory, it is important to look at how its digital transformation has been designed. India follows a very distinct government-led model. Rather than focusing first on private platforms, the government invested early in building foundational infrastructure, what is now called digital public infrastructure or DPI. This includes systems like Aadhaar or for digital identity, UPI for real-time payments, and DigiLocker for secure digital documents. The key point here is that these are not isolated tools. They form an integrated digital backbone on which both public and private service can operate. So this infrastructure-first approach has allowed India to scale digital services extremely rapidly. One of the most important outcomes of this approach has been rapid expansion of financial inclusion. Over roughly a decade, India increased bank account ownership from below 50% to over 80% of the adult population. This was driven by GEM Trinity, Jandan accounts, Aadhaar, and mobile connectivity. And if you look at this graph, you can clearly see the explosive growth of UPI usage. I think even now, Korean bank, Shinhan Bank, offers the UPI connection here. So this is not a gradual growth. It is a sharp, almost exponential increase in adoption. What this tells us is that once the infrastructure is in place, digital systems in India can scale extremely fast. This has reduced leakage in welfare programs, improved targeting, and fundamentally transformed the payment ecosystem. Building on this digital foundation, India is now rapidly expanding into AI. The ecosystem is growing at pace with thousands of startups, a large research base, and strong government support through the India AI mission. India also ranks highly in terms of AI vibrancy, reflecting strong activity across research, talent, and entrepreneurship. However, there are still structural gaps. Compared to leading countries, India faces limitation in frontier research, commercialization of deep tech AI, and access to high-end compute infrastructure. So overall, India's strength lies in scale and application, but is still building capabilities in cutting-edge innovation. This is reflected clearly in the design of the India AI mission. The strategy is built around three key principles. First, it's strongly state-led, with government playing a central role in building infrastructure and coordinating investment. Second, it is demand-driven. AI development is closely aligned with real-world sectors such as agriculture, healthcare, and education. Third, it emphasizes inclusivity. The focus is on making AI accessible and flexible, affordable, rather than concentrating only on high-end applications. So the objective is not just technological leadership, but broad-based socioeconomic impact. India is becoming increasingly active in global AI governance also. It has participated in major initiatives from the AI Safety Summit to the G20 AI agenda. More recently, the India AI Impact Summit in 2026 marked a shift from safety to inclusion and development. India is positioning itself as a voice for the global south, emphasizing access, capacity building, and public AI infrastructure. So India is not just adopting AI, it is shaping the global conversation. Now, let me turn to Korea. So Korea represents a different model, highly advanced, integrated, and mature. It has consistently ranked number one in e-government, with near universal broadband access and early leadership in 5G. Platforms like Government 24, 정보 24, integrated thousands of services into a single interface. So Korea's strength lies in efficient implementation and system integration. This extends into Korea's AI capabilities as well. Korea's AI strategy is built on its industrial base. It combines strong government strategy with leadership in semiconductors. Companies like Samsung and SK Hynix are critical to global AI hardware supply chains. At the same time, Korea is developing its own AI models and expanding applications across industries. So Korea's strength is in integration, hardware, software, and industry. So if both countries are strong, what is the current status of the cooperation? Despite strong complementarities, current cooperation remains relatively shallow. There are institutional frameworks and policy dialogues, but limited large-scale joint projects. Private sector collaboration exists, but mostly at the firm level. However, this is starting to change. Recent high-level meetings, including just yesterday, have clearly identified AI and digital cooperation as a key priorities, and momentum is building. This leads to the key question: where should cooperation go next? Looking ahead, the key question is not whether cooperation is possible, but where it can be most impactful and actionable. Based on the complementaries we've discussed, I would like to highlight 4 priority areas. First, joint AI research initiative. So this is perhaps the most direct way to combine India's large talent pool with Korea's technological and industrial capabilities. Rather than isolated projects, there is a value in establishing structured long-term collaboration. For example, through joint research centers or co-funded programs. Priority areas could include multilingual AI, healthcare applications, and climate-related technologies where both countries have strong interests. Second, co-development of DPI solution in third countries. This is a particularly promising area. India has demonstrated how digital public infrastructure can scale efficiently at the national level. Korea, on the other hand, has strong experience in system integration and service delivery. So combining these strengths creates a model that is both scalable and implementable, which is highly relevant for the countries like Asia, ASEAN, Africa, and Latin America. Third, alignment in AI governance. Both countries are already active in global AI discussions, including the AI Safety Summit and G20 processes. So there is an opportunity to move from participation to coordinated positioning. For example, on issues such as AI safety standards, evaluation frameworks, and transparency. This is important not only for bilateral cooperation, but also for shaping global norms, particularly from a global South perspective. Finally, strengthening startup collaboration and talent mobility. At present, much of the cooperation remains at the firm level and is somewhat fragmented. There is a clear potential to build stronger ecosystem linkages through joint accelerators, co-investment platforms, and talent exchange programs. This would allow innovation to follow more directly between two countries. So overall, these four areas are not just conceptual, they're practical, implementable pathways through which the Korea-India partnership can move from discussion to the real impact. In conclusion, India and Korea offer a highly complementary partnership. India brings scale and software. Korea brings precision and hardware. The key challenge now is implementation, moving from MOUs to concrete projects, from dialogues to delivery. If done well, this partnership can go beyond bilateral cooperation and become a platform for global South digital transformation. Thank you.
We appreciate your valuable contribution and the depth of knowledge you shared. First of all, apology again for our mistake. So we'd like to reintroduce our speaker, Dr. Kyunghoon, head of team from KIEP. He will share India's strategic industry and policy implication for Korea-India cooperation. Please welcome Dr. Kim again with a big round of applause.
Hello, it's me again. Today I would like to share the findings of KIEP's recent report on India's strategic industries and the policy implications for Korea-India cooperation. Let me begin with a background. In recent years, global supply chain instability has intensified due to geopolitical and economic factors. As disruptions such as trade disputes, military tensions, and extreme weather events have become more diverse, the current period is often described as a polycrisis. According to McKinsey's survey, supply chain disruptions lasting 1 to 2 weeks occur roughly once every 2 years, while disruptions lasting 2 to 4 weeks occur once every 2.8 years. In response, many countries and global firms have actively pursued supply chain de-risking. Even at some cost efficiency, they are prioritizing stability and resilience through diversification. This shift is reflected in trade-related indicators such as geographical distance, geopolitical alignment, and import concentration, suggesting that the pace of globalization is slowing. And governments of both advanced and emerging countries are also introducing industrial policies to diversify supply chains and strengthen economic security, especially in strategic industries. Another important factor behind this development is intensifying technological competition between Western countries and China. Many countries view China's dominance in advanced technologies as a major risk. The table on the left shows the countries that produce the largest volume of high-impact research across 64 critical technologies. China ranks first in 57 technologies, while the United States ranks first in only 7 technologies. Moreover, when we look only at technologies where the top-ranked country produces more than 3 times the research output of the second-ranked country, China ranks first in all such cases. As a result, the promotion of strategic advanced industries has become a bipartisan policy agenda, and countries are increasingly pursuing more self-reliant strategies. Against this backdrop, this report examined how India is responding. India is actively promoting strategic advanced industries for several reasons. First, India aims to achieve high income status by 2047, the 100th anniversary of its independence. To reach this goal, per capita GDP would need to increase nearly 9-fold from its current level of around $30,000. This requires economic structural transformation, with labor shifting from low value-added sectors to high value-added industries. The development of new growth industries is therefore essential. Second, India is seeking to reduce its dependence on China through the promotion of strategic industries. Despite escalating border tensions since the early 2020s, bilateral trade has increased rapidly, with India's dependence on China and its trade deficit increasingly concentrated in high-skill, high-technology manufacturing sector products. And finally, as advanced economies rebalance their global strategies, demand for cooperation with India is expanding, and strategic industries are a central part of many countries' India strategies. Many countries are strengthening cooperation with India not only because of its market size, but also because its technological capabilities and human capital. India has demonstrated strong innovation performance. Its ranking in the Global Innovation Index improved from 81st in 2015 to 39th in 2024. India performs particularly well in output indicators such as patent applications and academic publications. In strategic technologies, India also shows notable competitiveness. Among the 64 critical technologies mentioned earlier, India ranks among the top 5 countries in 45 technologies. India ranks second in 7 technologies and third in 24 technologies. Given these developments, Korea should strengthen cooperation with India in strategic industries. And encouragingly, India appears to have strong demand for such cooperation. Prime Minister Modi has highlighted promising areas of cooperation between Korea and India, emphasizing technology, innovation, and the mobility of skilled talent. In particular, demand for cooperation in research and development, or R&D, is expected to be substantial. Although India's R&D expenditure is increasing, its share of GDP remains significantly lower than Korea's. This suggests strong potential for joint investment and collaborative research. Accordingly, this report identified key industries in India, analyzed them in depth, and derived policy implications for Korea-India cooperation. Many economies, including Korea, classify various sectors as critical, key, or emerging industries and technologies. Unlike them, India has not yet officially published a comparable list of strategic industries or technologies. Therefore, this report identified industries actively promoted by the Indian government and strategically significant in terms of national security, technological sovereignty, and value creation. Based on this approach, we selected 6 strategic industries for analysis: semiconductors, electric vehicles, biotechnology, space, defense, and smart infrastructure. Let me turn to India's competitiveness in these industries. We examined trade-related indicators between 2002 and 2023. In terms of trade balance, the biotechnology sector has seen a significant expansion in surplus, while other sectors continue to record deficits. In global market share, biotechnology accounts for around 4%, whereas most other sectors remained below 1% throughout this period. Similarly, revealed comparative advantage, or RCA, and trade specialization index, or TSI, show strong and improving performance in biotechnology, while other sectors remain below key thresholds. Next, we analyzed foreign direct investment into these industries. Although trade indicators suggest that India's current competitiveness remains limited, major economies are making large investments in India, reflecting both its growth potential and strategic alignment. Between 2020 and 2024, India ranked second globally in greenfield FDI inflows into strategic industries and fourth in the number of projects, strengthening its position as a global production hub. We also examined R&D investment and the R&D strategies of major companies, finding that R&D activities are particularly active in defense, biotechnology, and the automotive sector. In sum, while India's current competitiveness remains limited in most sectors except biotechnology, its future growth potential is significant, supported by rising FDI and R&D investment. Next, we examine the key policies and institutional frameworks of each industry. As shown in this table, the Indian government is implementing a wide range of industrial policies across multiple sectors. We evaluated these policies based on their specificity, coherence, scale of resource allocation, and institutional responsibility. Overall, India's industrial policies go beyond just setting ambitious targets. They are supported by substantial financial and administrative resources, and implementation is led by dedicated institutions. Let me highlight some key outcomes. In sectors with relatively long development timelines, such as defense and space, tangible results are already emerging. In defense, India has developed a wide range of capabilities, producing platforms such as fighter aircraft, aircraft carriers, and submarines. Production has expanded rapidly and approximately 17,000 components have been localized as of early 2025. In the space sector, India has also achieved notable milestones, including a successful lunar South Pole landing, the launch of a solar observation satellite, and an X-ray observation mission. Looking ahead, India plans a Venus exploration mission in 2028 and the launch of an indigenous space station module by 2035. In sectors with around a decade of development, progress is also evident. Biotechnology is experiencing rapid growth led by pharmaceuticals and is increasingly being applied across industries. In smart infrastructure, as of May 2025, more than 7,500 smart cities mission projects have been completed across 100 cities. And in sectors with short development histories, other outcomes remain limited, but investment is accelerating. In semiconductors, following the introduction of a $10 billion incentive scheme, ISM, 10 major projects have been initiated and subsidy allocation has been completed. And the first project, a semiconductor backend facility by Micron Technology, began operations in March this year. And in the electric vehicle sector, major firms have begun entering the industry. For example, Maruti Suzuki began EV production in August 2025. Our analysis of India's strategic industry policies reveals two notable characteristics. First, India is actively promoting private sector participation across strategic industries, including traditionally government-led sectors such as defense and space. In particular, the Indian government is strongly supporting startups to enhance innovation capacity. As a result, startups are playing an increasingly important role across key industries. And second, India is pursuing strategic industry cooperation with major economies in a highly structured and institutionalized manner. Under overarching strategic frameworks, they have established detailed roadmaps and created institutional platforms to identify and implement projects. Let me turn to policy implications. There are already some examples of Korean firms entering India's strategic industries, but overall, engagement remains at an early stage. In defense, Hanwha has supplied K9 self-propelled howitzers with part of the production carried out locally in collaboration with India's L&T. In biotechnology, Korean diagnostic kit manufacturers have recently begun to expand their production capacity in India. And in semiconductors, Korean firms have shown limited interest in fab and back-end manufacturing, while Samsung Electronics operates a large-scale semiconductor R&D center in India. And in sectors such as space and smart infrastructure, there are currently very few examples of Korean firms' participation. As noted earlier, many countries are systematically advancing strategic industry cooperation with India by developing roadmaps, blueprints, and strategic documents. In contrast, there is no comprehensive document outlining mid to long-term cooperation between Korea and India in strategic industries. Although discussions on cooperation in strategic industries have taken place around high-level visits in the past, these efforts have lacked continuity. In addition, the absence of regular bilateral summits over an extended period has weakened momentum. And I hope the recent summit will revitalize momentum for Korea-India cooperation in strategic industries. Finally, let me conclude with policy recommendations. First, Korea and India should establish an industrial cooperation committee at an early stage and develop a strategic roadmap that identifies priority sectors and concrete areas of cooperation. Second, support for Korean firms entering India should be strengthened. Although interest among Korean companies to enter India is increasing, access to reliable information and risk management mechanisms remains limited. The Korean government can provide timely information and administrative support, particularly in helping firms secure industrial subsidies and establish partnerships in India. For strategically important investments, financing through Korea's supply chain stabilization funds could also be considered. And third, development cooperation projects linked to strategic industries should be expanded. By aligning with India's development needs while supporting Korean firms' entry in India, strategic development partnership initiatives can be carried out in areas such as smart infrastructure, industrial parks and corridors, and human resource development. Thank you very much.
We learned a lot from this presentation about the Indian industrial sector. Thank you. Next, I'm honored to introduce our final speaker of session 2, Assistant Professor Dr. Ramma Arun Kumar of ISID. She will speak on challenges and opportunities in India and Korea economic cooperation. Please welcome Dr. Aman Arun Kumar with a big round of applause.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ramma Arun Kumar. I am from ISID. I'm very happy to be part of the continuing dialogue between India and Korea, and very happy to present some of my views on the topic that was given to me. So basically, the framework of the presentation would be along three areas of emerging areas of cooperation between India and Korea. I would be discussing some of the issues and challenges in each of them, and maybe navigate through the opportunities that lie in front of both countries to cooperate. So the first emerging area of cooperation that I would look at is semiconductors. So if we look at the trade data for India in semiconductors is actually measured in trade under HS 8541 and 42. If we look at the data from the pie charts, it's very evident that India is highly import dependent. And not only that, it is dependent on only few sources, which is something that is a cause of concern. In the last few years, it has come out to be a very important aspect to consider for self-reliance. China, Taiwan, Singapore, and Korea are the sources where we are actually dependent. However, India has marked a pathway on developing a domestic semiconductor industry with a mission called as the India Semiconductor Mission, ISM, which has been launched with a budget of 1,000 crores of rupees for the financial year, for the current financial year. And the emphasis of this is to push towards semiconductor self-reliance and domestic capability building. The mission focuses on three important pillars, which is the semiconductor equipment and materials, full stack Indian semiconductor intellectual property, and stronger supply chains. So these are the areas where we want a lot of investments and a lot of collaborations to come in. And at the same time, the Korean semicon policy also holds supply chain resilience as one of its important pillars. So as we have, discussed since morning, that there are a lot of complementarities. At the policy level, also there are a lot of complementarities between India and Korea. So therefore, Korean firms are useful partners for India in packaging, testing, materials, design ecosystems, etc., in the semiconductor industry. However, there are some challenges before we talk about opportunities. The challenge is that the semiconductor industry depends on raw materials, which are basically the critical minerals that we have been talking about over a period of time. And there is a supply limitation. If you see the graph on the right, it shows the distribution of the sources of supply of critical minerals. So the main raw material in terms of minerals in the semiconductor industry are gallium and germanium. The source of these critical minerals is basically accounted for by Brazil and China, majorly. So we are dependent on these sources for our critical raw materials in the semiconductor industry. However, India has been in the domestic production, from the domestic production point of view, India has engulfed on a lot of production capabilities, which can be seen from the domestic production in terms of real output and GVA going up in the semiconductor production. So semiconductors are measured under the NIC 2610, which shows a clear growth in terms of output going up in the from the production side in India. Korea, on the other hand, is a leader in chip building and semiconductors. So it has, from the graphs, we can see it has almost 1/4 share in the semiconductor production globally. And particularly, there are two fragments of the market, that is the memory semiconductors, in which Korea is the leading producer, having almost 60 to 70% of market share. That is DRAM and NAND technology, which is found mostly in your the SSDs, your hard drives, mobile phones, and USB drives. So you can clearly see the impact or the expanse of the Korean semiconductor industry having an impact on our daily lives. So we have complementarities in this sector also, to have collaborations and cooperation between the two countries. The Korean vision is to build world's best semiconductor supply chain, which is supported by some of its policies in the recent years, which is the K semiconductor strategy in 21, semiconductor powerhouse strategy in 22, and the strategy for strengthening the system of semiconductor ecosystem of 23. So Korea and India will be ideal partners in mutual growth and innovation in this area too. The second is electric vehicles. So led by the man-made factors of, behind climatic change affecting the environment, the shift towards sustainable industrialization and greening technologies to achieve the net zero targets under the UNFCCC COP26, India has adopted several commitments, 7 in particular, of which there are important commitments under the NZT target of 2070 under COP26 related to sustainable urbanization, building an integrated and efficient transportation system, and building low emission industrial system. So one of the important industries where we are looking at under this umbrella is the electric vehicle industry, which plays an important role. But again, the electric vehicle and the batteries, which are actually the main technology, the main stay of the industry, they are dependent on main critical minerals such as lithium, nickel, cobalt, and graphite. The important thing to note is, again, the suppliers of these critical minerals are not, both these countries. So lithium is actually basically the major supplier is Australia, Chile, China, while cobalt is basically supplied by the Democratic Republic of Congo, and in graphite, China is the leader in the supplier. So neither India nor Korea are major producers in any of these critical minerals required in the production of EV, except graphite, in which India has a very minimal share of 5%. Dependence on few monopolized sources like China, Congo, Australia entails a lot of issues in terms of non-tariff barriers and other barriers which are imposed on exports of critical minerals, which make the industries vulnerable, the industries that we are discussing, semiconductor and the EV industry. So there are the areas to cooperate between India and Korea are in terms of sharing technology for reduction of costs of production in the EVs, and even in the applies to the semiconductors also. The suggestion given by Dr. Rowe was joint AI initiatives, which can drive manufacturing in terms of cutting costs, and a lot of innovation and R&D, again, joint initiatives for designing to allow flexibility in the demand for critical raw materials is much needed between the two countries. So recycling and other technologies can be built up to lower the dependence on critical minerals on which both countries are dependent, of which both are not the main suppliers. So if we look at India's leap in the production of EVs in the recent times, the main HS digit identified by DGCIS for electric vehicles under which exports have taken place is HS 8703-8030, in which we see that the exports of EVs from India has actually gone up over a period of time, which shows the rising production capacity of India. I come to the last sector. Yeah, 2 minutes. So shipping is a very broad terminology. So I've divided this industry into two to bring about the main concerns of India and where we can have collaborations with Korea. First, the shipping costs are on a rise. So the geopolitical issues make shipping cost fluctuations very volatile and unpredictable. However, the shipping costs from India to Korea have been the highest, if you can see from the graph, vis-a-vis the trade partners of Korea, that is Japan, Vietnam, China. So we have an inherent, a cost disadvantage, we can say, in terms of accessing the Korean market from the shipping point of view. India's dependence on foreign vessels for 90% of its total trade is a strategic weakness. So this point can be looked at from the global costs going up also. So the World Container Index has been rising in the recent months, and the Intra-Asia Index has risen manifolds. If you can see the middle part, it is the Intra-Asia which is actually rising at a very steeper rate than the global costs of shipping. And for India, the spot rates, if you can see the table here, vis-a-vis China, the spot rates have been rising very, very high in magnitude over over the years. And compared to China, India is still at a cost disadvantage. So the rise in costs has been due to the global rise has been due to the Red Sea crisis and the Iran war, leading to a lot of rerouting, etc. These vulnerabilities should be actually, from the Indian point of view, the shipbuilding becomes an important, industry for India to look at. So in shipbuilding, under the Maritime India Vision 2030, for charting a strategic course to leverage its vast coastline and to anchor itself firmly in the maritime map, global maritime map, India has brought about a lot of investments in the shipbuilding and ship repair business, where around 70,000 crores of rupees has been invested. It is a cluster-driven approach also being followed by the Indian side, wherein a lot of investments have come up in the from the Indian side, as well as in the recent Korean investments by Hyundai in the recent past. Which actually would actually lead to a lot of increase in the steel consumption over a period of time. So a lot of cooperation through Korean investments in these projects will be actually mutually beneficial. And the Korean expertise in creating supplier networks, logistics, and skills can be harnessed. Lastly, I have few points of suggestion or way forward to take the special strategic relationship. I'm borrowing this terminology from yesterday's interaction of the two leaders of our countries. So there is a need for policy level cooperation, which has been well discussed in the last panel. We need to identify core areas of cooperation like shipbuilding, and even under the shipbuilding and semiconductors, a lot of supply chain issues and a lot of issues have to be brought about at the table to discuss. When we talk about policy level cooperation and then we come to the people to people contact suggestion by the leaders, there is a vast middle group of agencies involved in creating a business environment which is conducive to both countries at the level of creating MOUs and to enable ease of understanding standards, procedures, technological and skill requirements at both ends. For example, I would like to take an example and then finish my presentation, is the Korean Agency of Technology and Standards. It has 144 MOUs with 33 countries, none of which is including India. So India does not have any MOUs with the government level agencies which need to be, a part of the dialogue, the policy dialogues that are going on to enable our business environment to become more conducive, more understanding to each other. The third is the ease of financing projects. So in the last presentations, we have heard the importance of financing and the financial sector to be more conducive to each other, to enable investments to come in, and linking digital payments through technology, and the currency swap agreements, which can also be considered between the two countries to overcome the reliance on USD. So some of the suggestion which was given from the audience also is a very important one to consider. Upgrading the CEPA, I don't want to bother you again with the importance of upgrading of CEPA, but there are a lot of issues in the CEPA that need to be discussed at the sectoral level, at the policy level, particularly in terms of the restrictiveness of ROs. And there are some non-tariff barriers on both sides which need to be well discussed and done away with. I think I will stop now. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for your excellent and comprehensive presentation. We will now move on to our panel discussion moderated by Dr. Choongjae, Director of KIEP Delhi Office, including speaker of session 2, Dr. Danish Hashim, Head of Ease of Doing Business from MNCS and CII, and Ms. Sanjana Josh of Senior Fellow EGROW will join to the panel discussion. Give a warm welcome to them on the stage.
Thank you. Before start session 2 panel discussions, we have the bad news. The first one is we do not have much time to have lunch. And the one more bad news is Dr. Kim Kyunghoon have leave for the interview 1:15. So first we have two discussants. So before leaving him, so if you have any comments or some questions to him or his presentations, if you have, you start first.
So I think all the presentations were very insightful. And first of all, thank you, KIEP, for inviting me for this very important and very interesting dialogue. So all the presentations were very exciting. And one of the things which came out from all the presentations was that there is a lot of opportunity, but there's a lack of actual realization on the ground. And that is not a new thing. We all know that we signed CEPA way back in 2010. But as far as trade is concerned, that has not actually picked up the way we had expected. Nor there is much of, say, FDI coming in from, at a still date, from Korea to India. Even though India aspires to become manufacturing hub and Korea is already doing so well, manufacturing share in GDP being much more than 25% and all. So there is, of course, a lot of complementarity between Korea and India as far as the economic partnership is concerned. And that is also important because India and Korea, geographically, they are not that far. That is point number one. And point number two is that both are democratic countries. And third is that they enjoy a very good political and economic relations. So I think there is a scope for widening this economic relationship. And all the presentations, they actually focus more on where are the opportunities, especially in areas where, which are sort of, I would call it new areas or emerging areas, unlike traditional areas like textiles or say automotive and all that. They have gone beyond that. Of course, there is opportunity. So to begin with, I would like to start with the presentation by Dr. Ramma Arun Kumar. So two or three things. One is that she mentioned about a huge opportunity in semiconductor area for both the countries to partner. And India has actually launched what is called a semiconductor mission 2, worth value of 1,000 crore budget. But what is that which is not making Korean companies come so far? Because you would see that a lot of investment has got to Vietnam, Malaysia, but it has not so far materialized, even as part of China plus one strategy. So India also has to do a lot of homework in terms of making available plug and play kind of infrastructure, and also sort of what you call fast approvals, improving ease of doing business for Korean firms to convert this into actual numbers. And then another important part Dr. Ramam mentioned about was critical minerals. So that is, of course, especially for your EV vehicles, that is going to be very important. But here we not only need, say, collaboration with Korea only on EV vehicles, but going forward, we also need to have collaboration and more integrated collaboration on supply chain for critical minerals, the way we have that with, say, India, Japan, and Australia. So that kind of collaboration is required. In fact, much of the things were announced yesterday by Prime Minister and President South Korea yesterday. And then on shipbuilding, I think that is a wonderful. India has hardly any presence. I think 90% of the things we depend upon foreign shipping line and all. And India is paying a lot of attention to. In fact, we have now Maritime Vision 2030, as was pointed out by her. So what we need to do is that in order to invite more of, say, Korean this thing, we have to actually secure them with demand, and that can originally come from Indian government, say Indian Navy or say what you call Coast Guard and all that. They will have a commitment, but at the same time, we also have to find out ways why Korean companies are not so forthcoming in say transfer of technology when it comes to shipbuilding. And in fact, one of the things you would have noted when you talk about Korean partnership, in 90 or 85% of the cases, Korean companies did not have a joint venture with India, and that actually restrict the supply chain. So what we need actually is that having more of collaboration or joint ventures, like for example, you talk about LG, Samsung, or HCL and all. Mostly they are operating not like PASCO, which has joint ventures with JSW, but we need to have a more of joint ventures. So this is about Dr. Rama's presentation. And now I come to the presentation which was made by Dr. Kim. So this was more of a proposal in setting up our partnership, and why this partnership is not working. And Tamil Nadu focus is worthwhile because Tamil Nadu is one of the states which has provided a very conducive business environment to most of Korean companies, including Hyundai, Samsung, POSCO, and then having this kind of experiment with Chennai, I think that is an idea worth exploring. And then second important point is that if you compare India, I mean Korea and Japan, to a large extent, they are very much comparable. So if you see FDI and ODA coming from Japan, that is much larger in numbers as compared to that in Korea. Why that has not happened? Like for example, you still see only 6 billion FDI in last 25 years coming in from Korea, whereas that figure for Japan is much higher. So there is scope for development finance need to be coming from Korea into India. and there has to be more, exploring the ways out. There's a lot of opportunity for actually collaboration, and especially from development initiatives and FDI coming. So some specific measures have to be taken in that concern. And thirdly, your proposal about partnership, one thing I would like to mention is that private sector participation in that is very crucial if it has to succeed, because only government to government may not work. So maybe something like, say, for example, the state level industrial development corporation or any private sector firm would be worthwhile experimenting with. So that was about your presentation. And now I could come down to the first presentation that was made by Dr. Ro.
So,
And
sorry, I think before leaving him, so you already give some questions or comment to him, and also Sanjina, Josh, do you have any comments or other questions to him first before leaving him?
Yes, yes.
He have to interview with the DTV, so
No, definitely. Thank you so much. Is the mic on? Okay, okay. Yeah. So, Mr. Kim, I got the presentations yesterday evening, and so the notes I made, I have to compliment you because I specifically made a point about your presentation that I had gone through, and the context for that, very frankly, is a previous discussion that we've had on investment. Some issues we already discussed, but we hopefully will discuss more because I mean it's nice that we are doing this dialogue today in the backdrop of the South Korean president's visit to India, especially since it's the first visit in 8 years. You know, it's been quite a long time, and several MOUs, etc., have been signed. And one of the suggestions that he made in the presentation about an industrial cooperation committee has already been taken up by the two governments. It's part of the joint statement that's been come out. So that should make you happy. From my perspective, when I looked at the joint statement and the things that the two leaders had said, especially Prime Minister Modi in his usual very catchy phrase, way of speaking, saying that our cooperation encompasses from chips to ships. That's a headline which a lot of newspapers have picked up. So in that context, what I was struck by was that the only targeted commitment that the two countries have made is to do $50 billion trade by 2030. And I mean, I'm sure it's the intention is there, and a lot of people are working overtime on this, but there was really not much talk about investment. Whereas his presentation did focus on investment and the FDI aspect, and also another very interesting area about development financing. I think that's a very under talked about area between India and Korea. How Korea should be doing more in terms of development financing. And in this context, I just wanted to share my own observation as a scholar of East Asia for many years, is that it's very ironical that for so many years we told our Japanese counterparts and friends and scholars and say, look at the Koreans, what they're doing in India. They are latecomers and they've caught on and they're going further than you. You're just being reactive and not investing, because the time period that we were, going through were the 90s to the 2000s, where the Korean investment and the Korean companies really made a big presence in India. Big LG, Samsung became household names. And our constant refrain to the Japanese scholars and other industry people used to be, the impediments are the same for everyone, but they are still managing to overtake you and go further. So why are you being so lazy? And and that's the point which struck me when I was thinking yesterday, that how the tables have turned, and the Japanese are being much more proactive in the last 10 years or so, whereas the Koreans seem to have run out of steam. I mean, even just in terms of
consumer goods or cars. I mean, Daikin has overtaken LG and Samsung. I mean, LG not so much, but Samsung. But Daikin has made a mark in just the last 5 to 6 years as a real alternative to LG and Samsung, and they have really, covered the market. So that's just one example. Or even in terms of automobiles, yes, Hyundai's had a strong presence in India, but Kia has done much better than Hyundai in the last 5 years. And plus, we have homegrown. Manufacturing firms like the Mahindra is doing so well. So what happened to Hyundai, from Korea? So something, perhaps the people have just become too complacent. Yeah, I take your point about the Korean companies reinvesting in the Indian market. So that's why the FDI figures are low. But the same holds true for the Japanese, because the Japanese investment figures are the figures put out by DPIIT are also lower than what the reinvestment by the Japanese firm is. So I think one needs to take into account, and the Koreans in the last 10 years have
Joshi,
become very reactive.
very sorry.
Yeah, no,
Before
not at all.
leaving him, we have asked you the answer or comments
Yeah.
or yeah.
I
please.
sincerely apologize for disrupting this session, but I have an interview to go to. So, yes, as I've said, development finance plays an important role in fixing market failures. And of course, we are looking into, especially shipbuilding sector, to provide development finance in terms of industrial clusters as well as talent training. So I think that's an area we can focus on in the future. And I believe Korean firms are trying their best to localize their production as well as marketing. And they are, I think, pretty happy with where they're going. But of course, going forward, they will have to try harder to make their strategies more sophisticated. Thank you.
Okay, I think, okay, you can go. Thank you. Oh, okay, Dr. Hasim, I'll give you your turns. You have to comment on the Dr. Arun's, Kumar's, yeah. Dr. No? What?
So that was again and especially in collaboration in digitization, AI and digital framework. So there cannot be any doubt about it. And he very rightly pointed out that so far it is only a private sector initiative, especially firms working in India. They have been trying to actually, take the initiative on their own front. But the supply chain in digital framework is lacking. You very rightly pointed out the way you have, say, with other countries like Vietnam and Singapore, that you not have with India. So this is one area where we need to pay attention to. And then another DPI export collaboration, that is another very important point that you made, that India and Korea, they need to actually jointly work together in promoting DPI export. That's a wonderful initiative because both the countries, they actually complement each other. And to begin with, what could we can actually try out is, integrating our own financial system. Like, for example, suppose, when you have to make payment to Korean companies from India, or from Korea, you make payment to Indian companies. So why we cannot link the UPI system with your digital payment system? So that will actually be a sort of experiment ground to take forward further collaboration between India, Korea to jointly export. And third point is about, you mentioned about semiconductor AI chips and all that. India, of course, needs that in large quantity. There cannot be any doubt about that. But why is that not happening? Because we still not have a commitment of that sort, or rather agreement between the two governments. So to begin with, I would suggest that if there is an agreement between the two government, that they can, Korea can supply this public, they export this for public infrastructure, and at the same time, Indian have to benefit in terms of providing, say, AI-related talent or skills or software. So there can be a opportunity for collaboration between the two countries. So that is what all I have to say. But excellent, all the three presentations.
have to continue.
Okay, so to continue with my comments, my deep appreciation of the presentations made by the other two presenters, one from Korea and one from India. Excellent presentations, a lot of food for thought. And in this context, it's not a remark directed to either of you personally, but more so to institutions such as KIEP, which are taking the lead in doing such dialogues. My suggestion would be that we need to now move further. The need for strategic investments in specific sectors is already well identified and endorsed by the political establishment in both our countries. What other institutions such as CII, ICRER would be happy to join, such as KIEP, is now to do sector-specific studies and dialogue and tell the policy establishment this is exactly what the people on the ground are thinking. This is what you need to do to smoothen the way. This is the kind of collaboration that can take place. Provide forums for businesses to business B2B meetings, but in these specific strategic sectors, we need to move on to those. And in terms of these sectors which are already been part of the India-Korea economic engagement, such as consumer goods, I think it would be a good idea to do again specific case studies on what has worked and what has not worked and what needs to change. So something like this would be a good idea for all of us, including ISID, to reflect on and provide tangible, concrete, action-oriented points to the government. So I think that should be the next step. The last point I want to make is again, related to what Dr. Kim here in his presentation had mentioned. And I missed seeing that slide here today when he gave the presentation. But what caught my eye was that in the context of development financing, he had put out a slide, and I was not aware of that. But there was apparently a USAID and Korea Development Finance Corporation collaboration on strengthening women entrepreneurship and supporting women enterprises. So that program seems to have ended, and anyway, USAID is no longer there. So I think providing pathways for women entrepreneurs, especially women-led SMEs in both the countries would be a very, very good idea to take forward, given the commitment of both governments to enhancing women entrepreneurship in their countries. And perhaps, we've just brought out a recent policy brief on how gender is becoming a part of India's FTAs. So when we are talking revising the CEPA, perhaps we could look at the gender aspect also. That would be good, I think, as a way forward. Thank you.
Thank you for good comments. And so I want to give time to the speakers, but I think to keep the limit of time, first I open the floor. First, one or two persons. Oh, sir, you lady. Others, do you have? Yeah, please.
Thank you so much. My question is to Dr. Hashmi and to all the other panelists, if you can also put in few words. While we are expecting a whole lot of Korean companies to come to India, a promotion, a growth in CEPA, there are two areas, Dr. Savich, wherein we are not focusing upon, or I want some advice from you. One is the capacity building. Number two, we talk of ease of doing business, but Koreans do not find ease of doing business. We say single window solution, but it is single window to multiple windows. This is not used to Korean culture. The compliances there is very different. We have to be ready for them. Can I have your perspective, Dr. Hashmi, because, and ma'am, others, and thank you for talking about semiconductors and others. I have been to Seoul. I've had the honor of interacting, but these are the critical point at a very grassroots levels.
Very good comments. Please. Sorry, sir. Please. Yeah. The gentleman. Yeah. So.
Hi, this is Chandrasekhar. Yeah, I'm representing ACUS Industrial Parks. We develop industrial parks, and our focus is to invite global companies, and Korea is one of our focus country. We just want to understand, we are planning to develop a Korean cluster in our industrial park, where in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. I just want to understand from the dignitaries, what would be the kind of a take from the Koreans, or maybe the kind of the either KEP or Kotra or any other governmental bodies. How can they support us? These kind of, as the other gentleman mentioned, a lot of Korean companies, MSMEs, are looking at India to try India market. When you compare to other countries like Japan, there are around 3,000 plus Japanese investments are here in India. But Korea, if you see, if I'm not wrong, it is around 600 to 700. The number is less. Here, what I find is, it's only the awareness. So that is where the the private bodies and the government, state and the central government is trying to develop the Korean clusters across India. But what kind of support that we can expect from the bodies like KEP or maybe other Korean bodies in India? This is my question. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Very sorry. so I would like to give you the Dr. No first, the related to questions or comments, please.
I'll make sure. Thank you for the questions and the comments. Comments we can talk later. I will answer to the question about the capacity building and doing business easy in India. So that's very important question. And a lot of companies, Korean companies, when they consult us, they talk about like what are the level of human resource they can take in India. How can we get the good workers from India? And also, is it really difficult, like as it's said in the internet or rumors, when they come to Korea? But I think, as everyone knows here, we have different culture, different way of working. It's not like one country's problem here. I think what we need to do is understand each other. So that can be gone through different levels of events, like cultural exchange events, also the training for each workers, and etc. etc. And also another thing going on here is like Korea understand that like we need to work with the Indian companies and workers. So what Korean government and Korean agencies are trying to do is they want to build the capacity building training centers in India. For example, like KOICA has started a big project on the maritime training center here. What they're trying to do is not only for the skill level training, they also want to have a cultural center there so the two countries can understand each other, and workers from India can understand the companies from Korea. At the same time, companies from Korea to understand the workers on India. That's first thing. And then second, what can Korean government bodies can support? I can talk the same thing. Koreans are trying to, when they come to India, they want to localize and try to help the Indian workers and for the skill building and the capacity building. So what they're doing is they first want to build a capacity building center, training center to support the workers and the companies for the both India and Korea. And that in that way, it can be a good start and it can be a backbone of this cooperation, I think. That's all. Thank you.
So thank you for this opportunity. I agree that there is a lot of understanding of each other's requirements. I have brought about this point in my presentation that we need to understand each other's requirements at various levels through sectoral analysis, through a lot of government agency interactions, a lot of understanding, the memorandum of understandings between the corresponding agencies. But from the Indian side, I think if it comes to the cluster development or technical standards understanding, we I brought about the example of cats from the Korean side, but I don't, or at least I'm not aware of any agency in India which handles the technical standards and trade standards. So we need to build a lot of agencies which have a targeted approach towards these lacuna, these gaps, which need to be identified first. So my submission is that we should actually work upon those lines on understanding each other's requirements in terms of trade, in terms of investments, business environment. The ease of doing business has been much discussed. It's not standardized in terms of what our understanding of EODB is and vis-a-vis what a Korean investor wants. So we should have a lot of flexibility in understanding each other's requirements at each level of collaboration and cooperation, and a very targeted approach should be identified. So one is that, and the other is that I thought we should have an MOU signed here itself as a beginning to take it very seriously at institutional levels, because that is how we will be giving our inputs to the government on policy making at a various at very essential levels of understanding each other. Thank you.
Thank you. When I moderate any sessions, the most difficulties is to controlling time for understanding. Please, I think this session is very productive. I think the first session, so we are discussed about why we need CEPA gradations, why it's too late, and how to direction to CEPA gradations, and with the kind of some investment. And this session, so we discussed the new industry, new technologies, the with investment. We covered the semiconductor, shipbuilding, digital, and AI also. And also you covered the importance of the talent mobility also. Yeah, technologies investment without movement of peoples is not easy. And also you also very point out the very good things. Compare the capacity building is very, very important in India, but as well as the improvement of the environment, business environment is also very, very important. And you also emphasize the government and government role is very, very important, as well as the public sector. But the mostly important thing is in the market, the private sector, how much to cross both each others. That's why we are working so hard as lawyers, as researchers. So I think, thank you so much for your all efforts to make today's dialogue successful, I think. Okay, thank you so much, all of the panelists and speakers and participants. Mr. Charan Singh, yeah, thank you so much. Please have a lunch. Thank you.